everyone, welcome back to Too Cool for Middle School. I've got a fairly quick video for you today about all the books that I read in the month of May. I've already talked about a lot of them in my video ranking all of Ruta Sepetty's books. She writes mostly young adult historical fiction. A lot of teachers have her books in their classrooms, so if you're a teacher or a historian or you really like historical fiction, go check out that video. It is now June. It's officially summer. It's iced coffee season. I've got both of my little kids at home, which is honestly really fun. Like, I signed up Jensen for a couple of camps and stuff, but it's kind of fun just to have him home. He's just hanging out right now. Baby's taking a nap. We're gonna go do some errands later. It's more fun to do those things with Jensen and Mariah, actually. I like having them around, so that's what we'll be doing this summer, just kind of hanging out. I'm trying to work on re-establishing my mind-body connection after having a baby and recovering, and then also, you know, just being in quarantine for 2 years before that. So I'm just trying to regain a lot of the lost health from the past couple of months and years. Oh, and I'm working on some curriculum for my book that is now out in hardback. It went backwards, it came out in paperback and now they've released it in hardcover, and it's really nicely done. It feels so good. The pictures in this, the images, they are just so good. I love the whole feel of it, the whole layout. So if you have this, that one is just so beautiful. I am writing curriculum over the summer so that you'll be able to use this with your class for nonfiction text and biography, history. You'll be able to, just choose one person if you want to learn about them during a specific unit or month or something when they work with your curriculum, or I'll create a bundle where you can just get all 15. So that's my major goal for the summer. I'll keep you updated. I'm putting it out there so that you hold me accountable. I'm trying to get to work on that. Honestly, reading is the thing that distracts me from getting other things done, tangible things done, because I read so much that sometimes I just don't get the other things done. So anyway, let's talk about the books that I read in May. I have such a good stack for you guys today. The first one that I read is called Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. This is historical fiction. It isn't necessarily YA historical fiction, it's more for adults. This book is set in Montgomery, Alabama in the 1970s, and the main character, her name is Sybil. She is a nurse and she works at a clinic that does several things, but they provide birth control for women in poverty, and they're mostly women who live in rural Alabama. So even in the 1970s, there were still people who were living without electricity and living in these shacks, a lot of times behind the home of a white family, and then they were still kind of sharecropping on their land. And that's kind of one of the main juxtapositions that Dolan Perkins Valdez really highlights in this book, because Sybil is the daughter of wealthy parents. She lives in a wealthy black neighborhood in Montgomery. Her dad is a doctor, her mom is an artist, her aunt is a psychologist, and Sybil is expected to, she's expected to be a doctor. And in the beginning of the book, she doesn't want to be. She really wants to be a nurse because she believes in this work of helping women take control of their own lives through reproductive care. However, it ends up not just being women that she serves, but also these girls who seem to be getting younger and younger, the people that they assign to these nurses. So she is assigned to help this family with very young girls who are pre-pubescent, they haven't even had their period yet, and she's giving them birth control. And she starts to realize that it has side effects, and she's not actually sure if what this clinic is doing is good for these girls. The deeper she gets into the work, the more she finds out that they don't have very much choice in the matter. And all of this is kind of set against a time in Sybil's life when she was in college, and she had an abortion, and that procedure allowed her to continue with her education and do what she does to help these women and girls. But she starts to kind of see this like forced birth control, kind of like bordering on, you know, sterilization. And, you know, the fact that abortion is illegal, she has an illegal abortion, she kind of starts to see those as one and the same, where none of these women, herself included, rich women, poor women, anyone, really doesn't have any control over their reproductive health. So it's a really, really interesting book to read right now. It's kind of relevant at any time. But I love that it's set in the 70s in the South. I feel like so much historical fiction, either like books or movies, are always set in like the 50s. And I had to like actively not picture these women in like 50s dresses and like picture them with like their afros and their jeans and their t-shirts and stuff, because this is not the 50s or the 60s where most of these books and movies are set. This is the 70s in the South with a cast of mostly Black characters, and that's just something that I haven't seen a whole lot of. So I highly, highly recommend this one. I think it's amazing and everyone should be reading it. I also read a lot of Ruta Sepetys this month in preparation to do a video where I ranked all of them from my least favorite to most favorite. And even with my least favorite, like I still like all of her books. So spoiler alert, there weren't any of them that I hated. This one, Salt to the Sea, just very quickly, is about refugees towards the end of World War II. So people who are fleeing like Soviet forces more so than Nazis. And so like it's just kind of like a weird perspective to see during World War II, but millions upon millions of people were left refugees after all of these countries were invaded, sometimes like first by Germany and then later by the Soviet Union, and they have nowhere to go really. So this book is really hard to read because it is based on a true story, based in history, and it's told from 4 different perspectives. So there's a kid who's a Nazi, a kid who is Prussian, a nurse from Lithuania, and then a girl from Poland. And it's just very weird to see that like they want to get to where the Nazis are. Like they're not fans of the Germans, the refugees anyway. I mean, the Nazi kid is. But like they can't be too picky. Like they have to get somewhere where there's a boat that's going to take them to somewhere like slightly safer than where they currently are. So it's really interesting. I highly recommend it. More about it in my Ruta Sepetys video if you want to hear a little bit more. After that, I read this one real quick. It's called Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning, Building Expressways to Success by Andretesha Fitzgerald. I was helping to pick a book for our like DEI book club in my district over the summer. So I checked this one out. I would say that it's not like a good introduction to anti-racist teaching or a good introduction to your universal design for learning. But if you've already read about anti-racist teaching and universal design for learning, then this is one that could come in later and kind of like bridge those two together. And I did highlight quite a bit in here. There was one quote that was my absolute favorite. I can't find it in the book right now, so I know I put it on Instagram. Let me see really quick. I care enough to teach for you personally, and I care enough to learn from you with sincerity. And that kind of sums up the two ideas in this book. So caring enough to teach for you personally, that's the universal design for learning aspect. Like whatever it is that we have to do to make our teaching accessible to any student, that's what we're gonna do. And then I care enough to learn from you with sincerity is about honoring wherever kids are from, their cultures and backgrounds and experiences, and not stereotyping or demonizing or dishonoring or neglecting any of those experiences as they come to school. So it is a good one. It's a pretty quick read. I like the theme of like a freeway, or I think she calls it an expressway. There's a lot of like metaphors around driving the whole time, and so that really does help you to just like take in a lot of the examples and really remember them. Like one that sticks in my mind is like there might be kids who are like stalled on the side of the road and like everybody else is just zooming past them, and they want to get back out there on the road, but they have like a flat tire or something. Like they need help. They need somebody to come along and fix whatever is wrong with their vehicle, you know, their mode of learning. They need you to give them that thing that allows them to get back on the road, and then they might go a little bit slower than the other cars on the road, but like until they have like that patch in their tire or that like spare tire on or whatever, they're just going to be stalled. They're not going to be able to get back into traffic. So the metaphors I thought were like really useful. So I'll link this one down below. It's a good one for like teacher book club studies. Then I read another Ruta Sepetys book, Between Shades of Grey. This is her first book, and it's about a Lithuanian family who, like after the Soviets invade, the Soviets have decided that they are a threat to Stalin. So they're, you know, evicted from their home and split up. The father is sent one way, and then the mom and the kids are sent to another train, and they are sent to a work camp and then sent to Siberia. And so I think it is just important to like know these stories about people sent to concentration camps under Stalin as well. It doesn't take away anything from the history of people who were sent to concentration camps under Hitler. I think it's just important to see like, look what was happening under multiple governments when they allowed dictators to rise, and these authoritarian governments. You don't even have an option. If you're anywhere under Soviet control, you're in trouble. If you're under Hitler's control in any of those countries, you're in trouble. If you go to Spain, you're going to be in trouble under Franco, or to Italy under Mussolini. And so to see, like, I'm really interested right now in just reading books about kind of the 20s and 30s and the rise of all of these authoritarian dictators at the same time. It's very scary, and, you know, something that we should know a lot about so that we can see the warning signs, because this was truly a horrible time in history for like even more people than we sometimes think. And, you know, that's not even getting into Asia and everything that was happening in Korea and China. This was a really, really dark time in like most of the world. So another important book here, more about it in that other video. And then I figured I would just wrap up all of Ruta Sepetys' books. This one is the second one she wrote. I think it's called Out of the Easy. And I wouldn't really classify this one as a young adult historical fiction. It's just kind of like for us. It's just for adults really. And I appreciated that. I liked this one. This one is set in New Orleans in like the 60s, I think. Okay, more like the 50s. But it's about a girl who has graduated from high school. She works in a bookstore. She loves to read. Her mom is a prostitute and she lives at the local brothel. And then this girl also kind of like works for the madam in the brothel, like as a cleaner, but she's often like wrapped up in a lot of the drama. There's like kind of like a side plot of a murder mystery. And one of the main conflicts is also that she's just like trying to get into college and sort of like break out of this life as a prostitute's daughter in New Orleans. I thought it was really, really entertaining. I read it in 24 hours. Like there was just one day I started reading it in the morning and I finished it late at night. So very engaging. I really liked all of the dialogue. Like I think the dialogue in this book is better than her other books, and the plot is just a little bit more interesting because she didn't have to focus on also teaching us about like something specific and true that happened in history. This is just kind of like set in the past in a particular place, but we're not learning about like a specific event. The plot is just fictional. So very good. Also recommend this one. I haven't heard nearly as much about this one in like Ruta Sepetys fan circles, so thought I'd throw that one out there. Next, I read another young adult historical fiction. This was a heavy young adult historical fiction month. This one is so good and so different. I really want to get a bunch of copies of this for my class. I think this would be so fun to work into some literature circles. It's called The Ghosts of Rose Hill by R.M. Romero. So this is set in like the present day. The main character is a Cuban, so Latina Jew. I think we trace back her family in the beginning, like her somewhere back, great-grandparents or something, were Jewish, fled to Cuba, eventually moved to Miami, and then her dad is from the Czech Republic. So this main character is, you know, Czech, Cuban, Jewish. It's written in verse, which is just always like a cool way to experience a story, and a lot of students really like that. So this would be great to work into a novels in verse, like literature circle unit. I would definitely recommend this for that. She goes to the Czech Republic to visit her aunt for a summer. She's supposed to be studying for the SATs, but like her true love is the violin, it's music, so she doesn't really want to study. She gets distracted by this graveyard near her aunt's house, and she starts to clean up this graveyard, and you learn the history about like what this graveyard is. I'll not spoil that part for you. And she actually meets some of the ghosts in the graveyard. So it starts off as kind of like historical fiction, but then it's got that novel in verse element, and it has like the ghost kind of, you know, supernatural element. And then there's like kind of a fantastical creature that they have to try to defeat. So it's like a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of magical realism, plus historical fiction, plus it's just very poetic and beautiful. And look at the cover. Like, it is as beautiful as the cover would suggest. So highly recommend this one. I think it's a pretty new release, so I would love to hear if anyone else has read it. Haven't heard too much about it yet, but I'm pretty obsessed. The final book that I finished this month was an audiobook. I average 0 to 1 audiobooks per month, but I do always enjoy it, like once I've finished a book. So I read Nick Offerman's latest book, Where the Deer and the Antelope Play. He's a hilarious comedian and actor, so of course the book is hilarious, and then he narrates it in the audiobook version. So I would definitely recommend the audio because it's just so good, you know, to like hear his voice, and it's hilarious the way that he reads everything. But also, like, a lot of the stuff that he says is really, really important, and I kind of wish I had a physical copy so I could have like underlined some things and like looked at some of his sources and stuff. The book is about like conservationism, basically, just like handling the earth well, like in our national parks, in our farming practices, in our travel practices, in the way that we treat the humans who lived on that land before we decided to like murder all of them because the land was so beautiful and turn it into a tourist attraction. So he gets into all of these really, really important topics. It was a pretty long audiobook, so I don't know how long it is, like pages wise, but there's a lot in there. And a couple years ago when I was doing my master's in history, I took like a history of environmentalism. It was kind of like history and environmentalism class, and a lot of the same questions that we wrestled with, and even the same texts, like a lot of like Aldo Leopold and stuff, were things that Nick Offerman writes about in this book. So I just really want everybody to read this book. There's a great chapter on why it is absolutely ridiculous to have Native American mascots as your like high school or college or professional sports team mascot. And the district that I work in, I call them out for this all the time, so I'm not afraid to say this, but the high school has the Apaches as their mascot. We are not on Apache land. We are not doing anything to honor the Apaches by having that as our freaking mascot. We occasionally do like service works with them, but why can't you just do that and not have that be your mascot? So I really appreciate the way that he puts it into words, using humor and also using history and also using common sense. And I did share that on Twitter and tag my district because it's really ridiculous in 2022 to like even be debating this. It's dumb. So anyway, once you read the book, you will want to like engage with the earth around you more. Like, you want to like make things with your own two hands and like grow things with your own two hands and just like live more connectedly to your food and your clothing and just like the way that things get to you. So I really liked this one. I think I want to get the physical copy and just like skim through it again and maybe even like use some of the passages. There's like a nature unit that my 7th grade English students do, and there's quite a bit of like cussing in the book, but I wonder if I could find like a few passages that would be safe for them. I don't know. So anyway, highly recommend. Let me know if you read it. I thought it was incredible. Just a quick preview for next month. I just finished this book, Trust by Hernan Diaz. and it's excellent. I'm not gonna tell you anything about it yet, but I just finished it last night and my mind was blown, and I will talk about it later. So anyway, those are all the books that I read this month. Happy summer. I hope you have a little bit more time to just like read for fun and fulfillment and enjoyment this summer. Let me know what's on your summer reading list. I have so many, too many. I'm reading a lot about gun control and like the history of gun laws and stuff right now, so that's not really for like enjoyment, but we'll probably end up talking about that at some point. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you are on summer break and I hope you're enjoying your summer break, and we will get into some back to school type stuff pretty soon. Sooner than I'd like, really. But until then, we'll just have some fun videos about like books and babies and stuff like that. So thanks for being here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.